Okay, thanks for joining us once again on The Bright Side. We're talking about the chemistry of the body, how everything gets made in the body. The body is basically a chemical factory. All the cells of the body do their work by making things, making chemicals. That's what a cell does. That's the raison d'etre. The reason for existence of a cell is to make stuff. Chemical A gets converted into chemical B, gets converted into chemical C. The cells in the body are ultimately chemical transforming systems, turning one chemical into another, into another, into another, into another, endlessly, ceaselessly, every moment of our lives. When we're not as healthy as we should be, it's simply because chemistry is not proceeding as it should. Under conditions of energy shortage, an energy crisis, if you will, chemical processing doesn't happen like it's supposed to be happening. Instead of chemical A getting turned into chemical B, into chemical C, into chemical D, into E, F, G, H, I, J, and on and on and on, chemical A may, for example, get turned into chemical B, but it may not make it into chemical C. And that's going to lead into a buildup or an accumulation of chemical B and a shortage of chemical C. And all of these chemistry defects, these breakdowns in the procedure and the processing of chemical A into chemical B into chemical C, this breakdown can occur following secondary nutritional deficiencies, oxygen deficiencies, and too much toxicity. When we talk about all disease being cell disease, what we really mean is all disease is some kind of breakdown in cells turning A into B into C. And this is all secondary, all following nutritional deficiency, respiration problems, lack of oxygen, and accumulation of toxicity. That, in a nutshell, folks, is a succinct and concise description of how the disease process shows up and how the toxic chemical homocysteine can build up. Homocysteine, as we talked about yesterday, is it has some important roles. I don't want to say it's a complete toxin, but when it builds up, it can build up to toxic levels. Chemical A gets turned into chemical B and gets turned into chemical C. And when this procedure doesn't move accordingly, when A doesn't turn into B or B doesn't turn into C, certain things can build up, and one of those things can be homocysteine. One of the important A to B to C chemical pathways, that's what they're called, pathways. One of the important chemical pathways involves an amino acid called methionine. Methionine is an amino acid that's found in animal products, and it's a very, very important amino acid. Methionine gets converted into cysteine. Now, cysteine is our detox amino acid. Methionine is found in food. It's an essential amino acid that you got to get from meat and from eggs and from basically animal protein. Beans will get you some methionine. You eat your methionine goes into your digestive system, and it gets turned into cysteine. But between methionine getting turned into cysteine, there's a little intermediary, and that's called homocysteine. So in our A to B to C, you've got methionine as A, homocysteine to B, and cysteine to C. A to B to C. That's just one little chunk of a chemical process. A getting converted into B, getting converted into C. And if you want to give these things proper names, methionine gets converted into homocysteine, gets converted into cysteine. But all of this has to occur within an environment, a milieu of nutrition, a milieu of oxygen, and a clean, pristine environment without a lot of toxicity. Methionine gets converted into homocysteine, which in turn gets converted into cysteine. But if we're deficient in certain nutrients, or if we don't have enough oxygen present, or if there's toxicity present, that homocysteine will not get converted into chemical C. It in turn will build up. Big problems will result. In fact, heart disease is one of the hugest problems that will result. And as I was saying yesterday, cholesterol, while it gets, everybody always wants to know about cholesterol and lowering cholesterol. Doctors will test your cholesterol. You'll get poison medication to lower your cholesterol. Surprise, surprise, the link between cholesterol and heart disease is somewhat specious. It's not necessarily real. We don't necessarily know it's true. People with high cholesterol have heart disease or live long lives. People with low cholesterol get heart disease. The link between cholesterol and heart disease is tenuous at best. However, the link between chemical B, homocysteine, which builds up under conditions of nutritional deficiency, and heart disease and a lot of other health problems is very firm and has been replicated. And most scientists and most medical professionals believe that it's a real, it is the real cause of heart disease, as well as Alzheimer's disease and other inflammatory health issues, including, as we'll talk about here in a little bit, skin aging and wrinkles. All of this is because chemical A is getting hung up, if you will, getting stuck at the chemical B level, and it's not proceeding into chemical C. Of course, this will also mean a deficiency in chemical C as the hang-ups, as the chemical pathway gets hung up right in that middle part, right in chemical B. Methionine is super, super important stuff. There was a famous experiment back in the 1950s done at the University of Chicago where they actually showed that methionine was one of the amino acids that is responsible for the origins of life. How do you like that? According to biologists, it was one of the first amino acids that showed up when Earth was just a big dead rock billions of years ago. All right, got so much more to say here about methionine, how you could actually lower homocysteine using nutritional supplements. We'll continue when we come back from our break. I'm Pharmacist Ben. You are listening to The Bright Side on the Genesis Communication Network. Okay, so we're talking about this whole process of chemical transformation. The body is basically a chemical transforming system. Every cell in the body is basically a little miniature chemical transforming system. Hundreds of thousands of different chemicals are produced every second of the day in each cell. And you got 100 trillion cells. Can you imagine the seething, bubbling cauldron of biochemistry that the human body is, or that a cell really is? It's stunning beyond belief. I mean, when we look at our bodies when we're sitting still, it doesn't look like anything's happening, but using our Superman magnification vision, just looking at your skin or imagining what's happening in your body, it really is mind-boggling. And all of this chemical transformation, this A to B to C to D to E, that is occurring ceaselessly and endlessly with a divine intelligence that is incomprehensible to the human mind, all of this incredible chemistry requires nutrition, requires oxygen, and requires a clean, pristine environment. This is why the 3 steps of cell disease, and all disease is cell disease, and what we mean is all disease is cell manufacturing breakdown. All of it is caused by a lack of nutrients, a lack of oxygen, and detoxification. Why is this important? It's important because if we're not feeling as well as we should, or God forbid we're dealing with some kind of degenerative crisis or degenerative disease, cancer, or heart disease, all we got to do is figure out a way to get chemical A to go to chemical B to go to chemical C, and the doctor isn't involved. There's no doctor that can help you in this process. There's no drug that can help us in this process. The medical model has stolen, has preempted, has co-opted this process and said, oh, well, we'll give you a drug or we'll cut out an organ and this A to B to C will be just fine. No, it won't be just fine. Drugs can't help us at the A to B to C level. Surgery can't help us at the A to B to C level. No drugs, no doctors, no pharmacists, no Obamacare can help us at the A to B to C level. Only God can. Only the divine force can. Through nutrition, through oxygenation, and through detoxification. One of these A to B to C processes involves the amino acid methionine getting converted to a chemical C, cysteine, via a toxic intermediary, a sometimes toxic intermediary called homocysteine. Homocysteine is one of the more problematic elements in the body. It has a role to play, but when its levels go up because of some kind of breakdown in this A to B to C process, disease shows up. Methionine is an amino acid that's found in animal products and high-protein vegetables. Things like beans and legumes have methionine. Peanuts will get you some methionine. Methionine was considered to be one of the first amino acids that showed up billions of years ago, before life on Earth, before life was created on Earth, according to the story anyway. There were a few gases like methane and ammonia and carbon dioxide and hydrogen sulfide from volcanic eruptions surrounding the Earth. Earth was just this big gaseous rock. No life, just gas and hard rock. And this is according to the story anyway. A big bolt of lightning came, and that bolt of lightning converted the gaseous material into a few amino acids, one of which was methionine. These days, not all scientists believe the story. The story was based on a landmark experiment that was done at the University of Chicago by a guy named Stanley Miller. Many of you have heard of this. I remember learning about it in biology. And there's some doubt around the story. It's just kind of a theory and kind of a story, but it doesn't really matter. It doesn't change the fact that methionine is a very, very, very important amino acid for a lot of reasons. For one thing, it functions as a raw material, a building block for a bunch of super important biochemicals, including the bright side favorite, lecithin, which helps us digest our fats. Lecithin plays a key role in the health of nerve cells, brain cells, and the nervous system. In fact, lecithin plays a very important role in the health of all cells because it's a key structural element in the intelligence, the information processor of a cell. Remember, the information processor of a cell is that thin sliver of stuff on the order of 10,000 or so times thinner than a piece of notebook paper. Can you imagine this? Take a piece of notebook paper and look at it, and many thousands of times smaller than this notebook paper, this piece of notebook paper, is the coating of a cell, the cell membrane, which is the membrane of a cell. And this membrane of a cell is largely composed of lecithin. Lecithin, in turn, comes from methionine. That makes methionine a vital amino acid for every cell, every organ, every tissue, every system of the body. It also, because methionine gets turned into lecithin, and lecithin is a fat metabolizing substance, important for all fat digestive issues. And if you have fat malabsorption syndrome, you suspect fat malabsorption, you want to be on lecithin. Well, it turns out that methionine can be converted into lecithin in the body. And this makes methionine a very, like lecithin, a very important fat metabolizing supplement. Methionine gets converted into lecithin, and lecithin is a fat metabolizer. This is why you're going to find methionine in a lot of fat burning and fat metabolizing supplements. Bodybuilders who are trying to cut up and lose body fat will oftentimes use methionine for this reason. Then methionine has another really interesting role. Methionine is a source of something called SAM-E. SAM-E, capital S, capital A, capital M-E. You may have heard of SAM-E. SAM-E's got some really fascinating roles to play in the body. SAM-E can be thought of as an activated version of methionine. A lot of you guys may have heard of SAM-E. I remember back in the 1990s, SAM-E was all the rage for brain health issues, for depression. SAM-E was being used as an antidepressant. That's because it's involved in helping the body make various brain chemicals, including the famous serotonin. And SAM-E was used as an antidepressant. In fact, there's a lot of good literature that talks about SAM-E, which is an activated form of methionine, as being important for as an antidepressant. There's a really interesting book called The Methylation Miracle. We're going to talk about methylation here in a little bit. And that's all about the importance of SAM-E. SAM-E is one of the more fascinating nutritional supplements that you could take, even though it itself is not an essential nutrient. You don't absolutely, positively have to take SAM-E as a supplement, but because it's got so many important roles to play in various systems of the body, including the brain, including for mental health issues, it may be something that you might want to think about supplementing with. It'll cost you, it's a little bit pricey. It'll cost you about $30, $40 for a month's supply, maybe a little bit more. But because it's involved in so many different roles and so many different biochemical processes of the body, SAM-E could be something that you might want to add in to your Mighty 90 essential nutrients. It's basically an activated version of methionine. And because it's an activated version of another nutrient, it means there's no actual specific nutritional need for SAM-E as long as you're getting enough methionine. But because not all of us activate our methionine effectively, SAM-E might be something that you want to think about as a nutritional supplement. All right, we'll continue talking about SAM-E and activation and biochemical processes here when we come back from our break, and take your phone calls as well. 855-660-4261 is our number. Got an interesting Facebook here. And some of you guys are sending me notes on Facebook. I don't always check my Facebook, so it's hard to, if I haven't replied to you on Facebook, I apologize for that. It's best to send me an email, ben@ksco.com, ben@ksco.com. I try to get to get to 4 or 5 calls a day. Put your phone number on your notes, and I don't need to have, it's best if you put, when you're explaining whatever your health crisis is, or health challenges, or your friend or family member's health challenges, it's best if you do bullet points. It's easier for me to read through emails, and always put your phone number so I can give you a call back. Got a Facebook here, and I've been playing phone tag with this guy, or Facebook tag, actually, with this guy. We're going back and forth, and let's see if I can get this thing up here. on my Facebook page. He says here he was on a fast. He wants to know, actually, what does it say here? Let me get this out here. Good morning. I have a question about taking diatomaceous earth. Is there any chance that it would be getting in the way of my longevity supplementation? 2 out of 3 of my daily drinks get some DE thrown in. Any chance I should? He wants to know if diatomaceous earth, which is a kind of clay sort of subject, will interfere with supplementation. And it's a great question because, indeed, clay can interfere with supplementation. Clay can tie up nutritional supplements, and you may not get the benefit of those supplements. So if you're using bentonite clay or diatomaceous earth as a supplement or as a detox substance, the same detoxification effects that earth and bentonite clay and zeolite, even spirulina, the same detox effects that you'll get from these kinds of substances can actually cause minerals and other nutrients to be flushed out of your body, supplemental nutrients. So they won't be flushed out of your body once they're in your body, once they're in your system, but if they're in your digestive tract and you take your earth and your bentonite clay or your zeolite with your supplements, you may end up losing the benefit of those supplements. So for detoxing minerals and using spirulina or zeolite, you want to take those separately from your detox, separately from your minerals, because you may lose those minerals as the detox supplements help you eliminate those minerals and vitamins and nutrients, as well as they help you eliminate those toxins. And they are wonderful detoxifying substances. Bentonite clay is amazing, amazing, amazing stuff. And it itself is a good source of minerals, too. You can use bentonite clay right into liquid. You can drink bentonite clay. Tastes pretty good. It looks sort of like a puddle of mud, but it tastes really good. And it is a good source of minerals, as I say, electrical minerals, as well as a good detox element. But you don't want to take your bentonite clay or your zeolite with nutritional supplements because it can the clay or the zeolite can magnetically attract those supplements and flush them out of your body. Okay, let's see. I think we'll continue talking about SAM-E tomorrow. It is a really, really interesting nutritional supplement, even though you don't hear about it these days too much. About 10 or 15, 20 years ago, we used to hear a lot about SAM-E as a brain health nutrient, and it is involved in this whole A to B to C process, and it does have a relationship to homocysteine. We'll talk about that tomorrow as we continue on the bright side, talking about amino acids for detoxification and for bodybuilding and bone building as well. Okay, our number is 855-660-4261. We do have a couple lines open for you. Let's go to California and welcome Shirley to the bright side. Good morning, Shirley. What's up?
Yes, good morning, Dr. Ben.
Good morning.
My problem is that my last pap smear indicated on an atypical squamous cells of undetermined significance. And
oh my goodness! Are you reading that? How did you? You said that pretty
I'm
good.
reading it.
Okay.
Acronym is ASCUS, and I also tested positive for HPV.
Ooh.
And the recommendation is a colposcopy, which of course is invasive to me, and a possible biopsy.
Well.
And my experience with the medical model wants me not to go near that.
You're a smart lady. You're a smart lady.
So I want to, and also this has been the first, I've never had an abnormal pap smear.
Okay. How old are you, ma'am? Or just roughly?
I'm 60-ish.
Okay, 60-ish. Okay, so here's the deal. First of all, biopsies, I've always had a problem with biopsies in general. I mean, when you do a biopsy or when you have a biopsy done, you're actually sticking a needle in. If there is cancer, sticking a needle into the area, and if there's cancer, and you stick a needle into a small tumor or some kind of cancerous lesion, you're just going to spread that cancer. So, yeah, you may need to have a biopsy occasionally, but you want to be really careful about it, and it seems like a problematic procedure. In any case, a pap smear, and by the way, do you know what a pap smear, what pap stands for? Do you ever wonder?
I guess I don't know.
Nobody ever hear about that. It's actually named after the doctor who was the first guy to do pap smears. He was a Greek guy named Papanikoulou, Dr. Georgios Papanikoulou. And so instead of calling it a Papanikoulou test, they used to call it a Papanikoulou test, actually. They call it a pap test or a pap smear. It's basically just a smear of your cervix. And what they're looking for is they're looking for defective cells that can sort of screen out cancer. Defective cells can be a precursor to some kind of cervical cancer, and they're actually that's basically what they're testing for, is cervical cancer or sometimes HPV, human papilloma viruses. It's a good test, but But here's the thing. If you have abnormal cervical cells, you got a cell problem. And as we always say in this program, all disease is cell disease, and precursors to cancers are defective cells. Cells become defective. The shape of the cell starts to change, and that changes how cells process energy. And once cells process energy defectively, or there's defects in how they process energy, they can trigger genetic changes, which will ultimately result in cancer. So a precursor to cancerous cells are distorted cells, cells that have the wrong kind of shape. Shape is everything in chemistry, and shape is everything in biochemistry. And once cells have distorted shapes, they're abnormal cells. That's what an abnormal cell is, by the way. It's a cell that has a distorted shape. That can be a precursor to cancer. But here's the thing. Nobody just has distorted cells in the cervix. They may notice it in the cervix. Your doctor may notice it in the cervix. But you got distorted cells. If you have it in the cervix, you're going to have a problem with cell distortion throughout the body. Basically, cells are beginning to break down. And in the reproductive system, the female reproductive system, that's almost like a red flag and an indicator, kind of a window into the body. And the fact that you have distorted cells in your cervix means you probably have messed up cells throughout the body. So you're starting to break down, my dear. That's the bottom line. So what do? You don't have a cervical problem. You got a body problem. It's just showing up in the cervix. Does that make sense? I'll tell you what to do here in a moment. But does that make sense?
Yes, but I've done some research regarding HPV relationship. Some say that that actually is a good thing because it helps the cells, and then the other says it is a precursor.
Well, it's a virus, and whether it's a good thing or bad thing is not really the point. The point is that your body's starting to break down. And if you go to the doctor, they're going to focus on your cervix, they're going to focus on your reproductive system, but it's your entire body that needs to be focused on. Your body is breaking down, and nobody just has broken down cells in the cervix. If you got broken down cells in the cervix, you got them all over the body. And so you don't have a cervical problem, you got a body problem. This is so important. This is one of the hallmark cornerstone principles of what I call the bright side philosophy. The body breaks down as a hologram. It breaks down as holographically. It breaks down. If it's breaking down in the cervix, it's breaking down in the bones, in the eyes, in the muscle, in the heart, in the blood vessels, in the skin, and everywhere else. And so what good does it do to focus on the cervix if the rest of your body is breaking down? This is why the modern medical model gets an F. As in failure, because it's focusing on these individual parts, these individual components of the body, and forgetting that these individual components live in a context of the entire body. Your entire body, my dear, needs to be addressed, and I'll tell you how you do that, because it's not that complicated. So hang tight, Shirley, and we'll come back from break and address your question, and then we'll take, if you're on hold, we'll take all your calls, or as many as we can get to today. I'm Pharmacist Ben. 855-660-4261 is our number. We'll be back after this. All right, we are back on the bright side talking to Shirley in California. Shirley, you there, ma'am? Let's get Shirley up here. Shirley.
I should not have the procedure.
I'm not going to tell you yay or nay. This is what I'm going to tell you.
Okay.
When they do a pap smear, they're looking for cells that are growing too fast and they're all distorted and they're out of shape. This is one of the basic things that happens when a cell breaks down. It grows too fast, it grows out of control, it doesn't grow fast enough, or it'll make the wrong kinds of stuff. That's basically all that happens when a cell breaks down. The question is why is the cell breaking down? Now, there's a couple of reasons. Number one, you want to think about hormones, and this is probably the main reason when it comes to cells of the reproductive system, and that is progesterone and estrogen. Those are the two main hormones, although there's probably some other ones that are involved, but the two main hormones that are involved in cells of the reproductive system growing too fast or too slow involves estrogen and progesterone. So first thing you want to think about is probably balancing out your estrogen with a little progesterone cream. Progesterone cream is non-toxic, so it's a great strategy for all estrogenic health issues, female health issues, and it's pretty readily available. If you aren't on progesterone cream, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yes, I am taking it, and I also have the estrogen cream too, but I'm predominantly using the progesterone cream. Okay, that's good. Now, that's just more like a symptomatic kind of thing, because I'd be more concerned with why are cells growing out of control inside your body. What other health symptoms do you have is the ultimate question, so we can form a picture of what's occurring. Nobody just has one health issue. You may notice it in one place, but until we get to multiple sample points, multiple data points, we can't form a picture of what's occurring in your body. Do you remember a guy named Bob Ross, who was a painter? He was on TV. Did you ever see that Bob Ross guy, by any chance, Shirley? No, I guess they haven't.
Okay, Bob Ross was a painter, and he used to show people how they could paint pictures very simply and very easily. And what he would do is he'd draw little lines on this canvas, and by putting 2 or 3 lines on the canvas, all of a sudden a mountain would appear. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
You remember that guy, right? I was a kid when I would watch him, and I'd be amazed. He'd put 3 lines, and boom, there'd be a mountain. Another couple of dots, and you'd see a river. And then another couple dots, and there'd be birds flying in the air. And all this was done by putting different dots, because once you accumulate sample points or dots, pictures start to emerge. With 1 dot, you don't have a picture. But with 2 or 3 dots, you can start to form a picture of what's occurring in the body. And this metaphor or analogy can be applied to the body in terms of health. When you start to get multiple points, a picture will observe. With a picture will emerge. With an abnormal pap smear, we got 1 point in the middle of our canvas, and it doesn't tell us squat. If a doctor is good, and there's not a lot of them, but if a doctor is a good doctor, what he'll do is he'll start to accumulate data points so he can form a picture of what is occurring in the body the way Bob Ross forms a picture of a landscape on a canvas. This is what a good doctor should be doing, and it's what very few of them do. They'll test your cervix, and they'll say you got a cervical problem. You don't have a cervical problem, you have a body problem. So let's start to work on how our cells are growing throughout our body. And I'm going to assume that I don't have time to get to a whole picture with you today, but I'm just going to give you some ideas on how you can work with the cells of your body. First and foremost, surprise, surprise, focus on the digestive system. Nothing will mess up the shape of a cell or the function of a cell faster than a messed up digestive system for a lot of reasons. One, toxins get into the body once the digestive system breaks down. That will cause defects in cell growth. And number 2, because you won't be absorbing nutrients as well once your digestive system breaks down. And that too will cause defective cell growth, which technically is called dysplasia. That's the fancy name for defective cell growth. Like as in cervical dysplasia. Anyway, focus on digestive health. Use the ultimate enzymes. Use lecithin after meals. When women get older, their fat processing system starts to break down typically. You won't absorb your fats or fatty vitamins, so start to focus on nutrients that help you absorb fats. Lecithin is very, very important. The ultimate enzymes can be helpful. The Biolumin Nightly Essence is one of the most important estrogen balancing supplements you could ever use, and fat metabolizing supplements you could ever use. We always talk about probiotics is important for the digestive system, but what sometimes goes under the radar is the fact that probiotics are extremely important for fat metabolism and for the female hormones and the female reproductive system. So get on the Biolumin Nightly Essence. Are you already on that?
I take probiotics.
Okay, whatever it is, I like the Biolumin Nightly Essence, but whatever it is, make sure you're doing 80 billion units a day, and make sure you do them in divided doses, and also use fermented foods, which are even better sourced than supplemental probiotics, because you get all the food factors and the food nutrients too. Essential fatty acids are a must-have. Use those with your digestive support, with your lecithin and your digestive enzymes and your probiotics. And then vitamin E and vitamin A, both are some of the most important nutrients for helping balance out female hormones and for cell growth in general. Vitamin E helps balance out estrogen, as does vitamin A. Vitamin A is very important for the growth, stabilizing the growth of cells, and vitamin E is very important for protecting the brain of a cell, the membrane, the outside part of the cell. 400 international units of vitamin E, and 20,000 international units of vitamin A a day are very important for you. And then I'd also be throwing in my minerals, especially selenium, which is wonderfully important for the female reproductive system. The Ultimate Selenium from Longevity is a great source of selenium, 400 to 600 micrograms a day. And take your selenium with your vitamin E. Those two work together. And then I'd also be throwing in zinc, and like vitamin E and selenium work together, vitamin A and zinc work together. About 50 milligrams a day of zinc picolinate. Make sure you're getting on the entire Mighty 90, including, we mentioned the EFAs, but also the Osteocal and the Beyond Tangy Tangerine. I'd be sipping on that all day long. And then last but not least, if you have any blood sugar issues, which you very well could, most of us do as we get older, especially if you have some abnormal cell growth, there's a good chance that you're not processing sugar as well as you should. Wean yourself off of fast-burning sugars and get into some more protein, and then you might want to throw in the sweeties and some other sugar metabolizing nutrients as well. Thiamine, niacin, niacin. Choline can be very important for helping you metabolize sugar. And the amino acids taurine and arginine are also very important for sugar metabolizing. So, number one, focus on digestion. Number two, focus on fat metabolizing nutrients. Use your fatty supplements like E and A and the probiotics. Throw in your minerals, zinc and selenium, and make sure you're on the Mighty 90 and sipping on the BTT. And then stabilizing blood sugar. Anything else, my dear?
Okay, I think that should... Yeah,
that'll take you a long, long way, and good luck with everything. I hope everything works out for you. Thanks so much for your call, Shirley. Joseph in Texas got a couple of minutes for you. What's going on, my friend?
Yes, sir. Mother was diagnosed, long story short, mother was diagnosed diabetes, thyroid, all of the above.
Okay, let's talk about that. Diabetes, okay, first and foremost.
Okay,
go ahead.
No, but I've got on everything, 20,000 units of... 20,000 IUs of vitamin A, yeah. B complex,
yeah.
The BTT,
okay.
The vitamin E, the zinc.
You're missing the main point, though, my friend. Those are all great, and congratulations on using all those. Sounds like you've been paying attention to the bright side, and that's awesome. But you're missing the main point, and that's food. That's the number one thing to do. Diabetes is an eating disease. It's a food disease. It's not a doctor disease. It's not an endocrinologist disease. I had a friend whose dad used to tell me all the time how proud she was of her dad, who was the chief endocrinologist at a big-time hospital in New York. And she loved her dad so much, and he was a genius, and he was brilliant. This gal ended up with diabetes that was so severe she had to have her kidney removed at the age of 50, and her brilliant dad, the endocrinologist, didn't even know she was a diabetic. That's because diabetes is not a doctor issue. It's a food issue. It's an eating issue. So she's got diabetes, Joseph. You got to focus on the foods first. And I'm not saying those supplements aren't helpful. They're great, actually, and I'm very impressed that you probably were paying attention somewhere or doing some good studying, because those are important. Those are all important, as is chromium, vanadium, and from the sweeties. But diabetes is an eating disease. And if you have it, reversing it is as simple as changing the way you eat. And if you still have it, that means you're still eating the wrong kinds of food. If you're taking your supplements, by all means, continue doing that. That's great. But you want to focus on foods. What do? Number one, wean yourself away, and don't try to use willpower. Wean yourself away from the fast-burning sugars, the breads, the pastas, the potatoes, the rices, the cereals, the desserts, the fruits, and the fruit juices. You may have done it, but she still got diabetes. Well, my friend, congratulations, but she still has diabetes. So you haven't done enough of it if you've done it, because you know what I'm saying? It would just reverse. So wean yourself off of that.
The thing is she ended up in the hospital, and we've only been doing this for 2 weeks, and
okay.
You know, she's still on her insulin and all that other fun bad stuff that she's not supposed to be on. And I don't know if they're supposed to be mixed together, the vitamins.
Okay.
Well,
Joseph, we're out of time, my friend, but this is a very good, important question. I'd love it if you could call me back tomorrow, and we'll spend as much time as we need. If you can call back early, we'll get you first thing, and then we can spend as much time as you need. If it's only been 2 weeks, though, you want to give it a little bit more time. And your questions are all very good. I wish we had more time to answer them today, but we just don't, because we're out of time. But if you call me tomorrow, I'll spend as much time as we need to fully address all of your questions. And thanks so much for your call. I apologize for cutting you off. That's why I want you guys to call in early, first thing. The earlier you call, the easier it is to get to all our calls. Anyway, thanks so much for listening, folks. I'm Pharmacist Ben. Tomorrow we'll continue talking about SAMe and what you can do to help lower homocysteine using SAMe, as well as some other so-called methylating agents. Have a wonderful, beautiful day. We'll talk to y'all later, folks. Bye for now.